Frank Holloway was sanding a rocking chair at 2:47 in the morning when his phone lit up the dark. Outside his workshop, January wind rattled the barn walls, 17 degrees and dropping. The space heater coughed heat through duct-taped wiring, but the cold found its way in anyway. He set down his sandpaper and checked the screen. Marjorie Mobile. The emergency ringtone, the one he'd set years back for middle-of-the-night trouble. "Marjorie?" Her voice cut through the line like ice water. Club music pounded behind her, male laughter. "My card declined at the club," she said. No hello, no explanation. "Send me $2,000. Right now." Frank's hand tightened on the phone. "What club? Where are—" "Venom Lounge. Wire it to my account, or I'm staying at Derek's tonight." The line went dead. In the background, just before she hung up, Frank heard a man's voice. Young, cocky. "He'll send it. He always does." Frank stood there in the sawdust, phone still pressed to his ear, listening to dead air. The heater rattled. Wind howled. His breath came out visible even with the damn thing running full blast. $2,000. At 3 in the morning, from a nightclub he'd never heard of. With a man named Derek. He replayed the call in his head. Her voice. Cold, entitled, not scared, not apologetic. Just demanding, like he was an ATM that talked back too much. 41 years. They'd been married 41 years. Frank set the phone on his workbench and stared at the rocking chair. Half finished. He'd been making it for a grandchild he'd never met. Amy's kids. His daughter hadn't spoken to him in 3 years. Not since that argument at her wedding. Something about respect and boundaries. Something about Marjorie freezing her out and Frank never standing up for her. He should have stood up for her. The phone buzzed again. Not Marjorie. Her sister Diane, Frank answered. "Diane, thank God. Listen, Marjorie just called me from some club, and—" "Frank." Diane's voice sounded careful. Too careful. "It's 3 in the morning. I know what time it is. She's at a place called Venom Lounge with some guy named Derek. She wants me to wire her. Maybe—" Diane paused, long enough that Frank heard his own heartbeat. "Maybe just give her some space right now." "Space?" "She's at a nightclub at 3 a.m. asking for—" "Frank, I shouldn't be in the middle of this." "In the middle of what?" Another pause. "Just give her what she needs. It'll be easier that way." The line went dead. Frank stood in his workshop. Coffee grounds spilled across the counter from where his hands had shaken trying to make a pot. The kitchen light hummed. Everything felt wrong, off-kilter. He pulled on his boots, his heavy flannel coat, wool hat. The thermometer outside read 17 degrees. His truck started rough in the cold. He let it warm up, breath fogging the windshield while the defroster struggled. The streets were empty. Just Frank and the streetlights and the ice forming in the gutters. He drove to the bank. First National, downtown. The ATM glowed in the empty parking lot, the only light for 3 blocks. Frank parked under a street lamp and got out. The wind hit him like a fist. 17 degrees felt like 0 when it moved. His arthritic fingers fumbled with his wallet, pulled out his card. The ATM screen flickered blue. Withdrawal. He typed in his PIN, navigated to the amount screen, typed 2,000. His finger hovered over confirm, and then he saw himself. His reflection in the black glass of the ATM screen. An old man, 68 years old, standing in sub-zero wind at 3:30 in the morning, about to wire money to his wife so she could stay out all night with a man named Derek. 41 years. Frank's hand withdrew. He hit cancel. The screen reset. He stood there, cards still in the slot while the cold burned his lungs. Then he pulled up his phone, opened the GPS, typed Venom Lounge. The address appeared. 15 minutes away, downtown in the warehouse district. Frank got back in his truck. He told himself he just needed to see. Just needed to understand. Maybe she was in trouble. Maybe someone drugged her drink. Maybe Derek was helping her, not... The heater blasted. Frank's hands gripped the steering wheel. He passed St. Augustine's Church, dark, locked. He'd been going there for 30 years. Every Sunday, Father Mike knew him by name. He passed Dolores's Diner, lights on, the only business open at 4 a.m. Chin's 24-hour. Dolores waved from behind the counter as he drove past. She was always there, always watching. Friendly old woman who poured coffee like it was medicine. The warehouse district looked different at night. Seedier, neon signs and bass-heavy music leaking from steel doors. Frank had never been down here. This wasn't his world. Venom Lounge flickered in pink and blue neon. The parking lot was half full. Expensive cars, BMWs, Audis, and their Marjorie's car. The vanity plate he'd bought her for their anniversary. Margie 48. Right next to it, a BMW with the plate DRKF it. Derek. Frank parked across the street in the shadows. His truck ticked as the engine cooled. Through the windshield, he could see the club entrance. Bouncer in short sleeves despite the cold. Bass thump audible even from here. Frank's hand went to the door handle, but he didn't open it. Not yet. He needed to see with his own eyes what his heart already knew. Frank crossed the street with his hands shoved in his coat pockets. The cold bit through his flannel, through his thermal undershirt straight to the bone. His breath hung in the air like smoke. The bouncer looked up as he approached. Young guy, maybe 27, tribal tattoos running up his neck. He wore a black t-shirt like the cold was nothing. "Covers 20, the bouncer said. Frank shook his head. "I'm just looking for my wife." The bouncer's expression shifted. Not unkind. Almost pitying. "You sure you want to do that, Pops?" Pops. Frank felt the word land like a punch. "I just need to see," Frank said. The bouncer stepped aside. "Window's there. You don't need to go in." Frank moved to the frosted glass. Inside, strobe lights cut through cigarette smoke. Bodies pressed together on a dance floor, music so loud he could feel it in his chest. A VIP section in the back, roped off with velvet cord, and there she was. Marjorie sat on a leather couch, head thrown back, laughing. A younger man had his arm around her. Gym built, tank top showing off arms covered in tattoos. Derek. Had to be. His hand rested on her thigh. Possessive. Public. She wore a dress Frank had never seen, low-cut, expensive. Her hair was done up, makeup perfect. She looked 10 years younger in the strobing lights. Derek leaned in and whispered something. Marjorie laughed again, touched his chest. Frank's knuckles went white against the window frame. And then Marjorie's eyes swept the room. Casual. Bored, they landed on the window, on Frank. For 3 seconds, they made eye contact through the frosted glass. Frank frozen. Marjorie registering his presence. She didn't flinch, didn't look guilty or shocked or afraid. She smirked. Then she turned back to Derek, leaned in close, whispered something. Derek's head turned toward the window. He looked straight at Frank and laughed. Threw his head back, showing all his teeth. Marjorie's hand slid up Derek's arm. Frank stepped back from the window, his heart hammered. The bouncer was watching him with that same pitying expression. "You okay, Pops?" Frank couldn't answer. He turned and walked back to his truck. His boots crunched on ice and salt. The wind screamed down the empty street. He got in, started the engine, sat there with the heat blasting, staring at nothing. 10 minutes passed, maybe 15. Frank lost track. The club door opened. Marjorie and Derek stumbled out, arms around each other. She was laughing, clinging to him. Derek wore a leather jacket, Frank's leather jacket, the one Marjorie said she'd donated to Goodwill 6 months ago. They walked to the BMW. Derek opened the passenger door for her, all chivalrous, possessive hand on the small of her back. She slid in. He walked around to the driver's side, caught sight of Frank's truck across the street, and raised his hand in a mock salute. Then they drove off, taillights disappearing around the corner. Frank sat there until his fingers went numb on the steering wheel. He didn't remember deciding to drive. Just found himself on the highway, then off again. Then on back roads he'd traveled 1,000 times without thinking. The truck knew the way, even if he didn't. He ended up at Dolores's diner, 4:15 a.m. The neon sign buzzed, half the letters burned out. CH ends 24HR. Frank parked but didn't get out, just sat there, engine running for warmth, staring at the dashboard. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. He opened the glove box looking for napkins, tissues, anything. His hand closed on paper. He pulled it out. A receipt, crumpled, from the Pines Motor Lodge, dated 2 nights ago, 11:47 p.m. Checkout, room 14. Charged to the joint credit card. 2 nights ago, Marjorie said she had book club. Frank had stayed home, watched a game, went to bed at 9. The receipt showed 2 adults, room service, champagne, and strawberries. Frank smoothed the paper on his knee. His reading glasses fogged from his breath, the date, the charges, all there in black and white. The diner door opened. Dolores stood backlit in the doorway, coat thrown over her nightgown, boots unlaced. She held 2 styrofoam cups. She approached the truck and tapped on the window. Frank couldn't move. She tapped again, harder. He rolled down the window. Cold air rushed in. "Come inside before you freeze to death out here," Dolores said. Her voice had gravel in it. Cigarettes and 60 years of calling out orders. "Coffee's burnt, but it's hot." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. I can see you from the counter, Frank. You've been sitting here for 10 minutes. Engine running, lights off, looking like death." She thrust a cup through the window. "Take it." Frank took the coffee. It was burnt, tasted like tar. He drank it anyway. "Come inside," Dolores said again. Not a request. Frank turned off the engine, got out. His legs barely held him. The cold was so sharp it hurt to breathe. Inside, the diner was empty except for a drunk sleeping in the corner booth. Fluorescent lights hummed. The smell of bacon grease and pine sol. Dolores led him to the far booth, vinyl seats duct-taped over tiers. She set down her own coffee and slid in across from him. Didn't say anything, just waited. Frank pulled out the receipt, slid it across the table. Dolores picked it up, read it, set it back down. I know, she said. Frank's head snapped up. What? I've been watching. Dolores reached under the table, into the bag she always carried, pulled out a manila envelope, thick, rubber band around it. For 3 months now, maybe 4. She slid the envelope across the table. Her hand stayed on top of it. My Eddie, she said. 30 years ago. Different woman, same story. She cleaned him out, left him broke, he never recovered. Her eyes were hard, wet. Nobody does this twice on my watch. Frank's hands shook too hard to open the envelope. Dolores opened it for him, photos spilled out, timestamps in the corners, Marjorie and Derek, entering the Pines Motor Lodge. 4 different dates, Marjorie and Derek, outside Venom Lounge. 6 different nights, Derek's BMW parked in Frank's driveway, daytime, while Frank was at the hardware store. There's more, Dolores said quietly. Todd at the bank. He's been trying to reach you, about the accounts. Frank looked up from the photos. What about the accounts? She's been moving money, Frank, a lot of it. Frank's coffee had gone cold in his hands. He couldn't look away from the photographs spread across the diner table. Each one, a moment he'd missed. Each timestamp a night he'd been home alone, sanding furniture, or watching television, or telling himself everything was fine. How much? His voice came out raw. Dolores wrapped both hands around her mug. I don't know the numbers. That's Todd's territory. But enough that he broke protocol to try warning you. Called your house 4 times this week. Frank thought about the answering machine. Marjorie always got to it first. I never got any messages. I figured. Dolores pulled out her order pad, flipped through pages of cramped handwriting, dates, times, license plate numbers. Started noticing her in here about 4 months back. Late nights. Always redoing her makeup in the bathroom. Always that BMW following her out. She pushed the pad across to him. Frank recognized Marjorie's car. Again and again. Always followed by Derek Fit. Why? Frank asked. Not why did she cheat. Why did Dolores care enough to document it all? Dolores was quiet for a moment. Outside, a semi rolled past on the highway, engine grinding. Eddie was a good man, she finally said. Worked construction his whole life. Hands like yours, all busted up from honest work. We had 32 years together. Good years. Then she showed up, younger woman. Told him he deserved excitement. Told him I was holding him back. She pulled out a cigarette, but didn't light it. Just turned it over in her fingers. She took everything. Cleaned out accounts we'd built since we were kids. Forged his signature on papers. By the time we figured it out, she was gone and we were broke. Dolores looked up. He died 3 years later. Never got over it. Not the money, the shame of it. Feeling like a fool. I'm sorry, Frank said. Don't be sorry. Be smart. She tapped the envelope. This is proof. Dates, times, places, you're going to need it. Frank gathered the photos back into the envelope. His hands had steadied some, but his chest felt like someone had their fist around his heart. What do I do now? First, you go see Todd. 8 a.m. bank opens. You find out how bad the damage is. She refilled his coffee without asking. Second, you stop thinking you can fix this by being quiet about it. Eddie thought that. Thought if he just loved her harder, she'd come back. All he did was give her more time to rob him blind. Frank stared into his coffee. Saw his reflection wavering there, old, tired, pathetic. I've never been good at confrontation, he said quietly. I know. I've watched you for 30 years, Frank. You're the guy who tips 20% even when the service is bad. Who says no problem when someone cuts in line. Who probably apologized to Marjorie when she came home smelling like another man's cologne. Frank flinched. Because she was right. 3 weeks ago, Marjorie came home at 2 a.m. He'd woken up, asked if everything was okay. She snapped at him for being controlling. He'd apologized and gone back to sleep. Being kind isn't weakness, Dolores said. But letting people destroy you while you smile about it? That's not kindness, Frank. That's just being too scared to stand up. The words hit harder than the cold had. Frank sat with them, feeling their weight. She saw me, he said, at the club, looked right at me, and she smiled. Of course she did, because she thinks you'll do what you always do. Roll over. Send the money. Keep the peace. Dolores's voice softened. Prove her wrong. A car pulled into the lot. Headlights swept across the windows. Frank tensed, but it was just a trucker heading to the counter for coffee to go. The clock above the register showed 4:52 a.m. In 3 hours, the bank would open. In 3 hours, he'd know just how bad this was. I don't know if I can do this, Frank said. You already are. Dolores stood, started clearing plates from empty tables. You didn't send the money. That's the first step. She was right. For 41 years, he'd done what Marjorie wanted. Kept the peace. Avoided the fight. And where had it gotten him? Sitting in a diner at 5 in the morning, looking at photos of his wife with another man. Frank drained his coffee. It was still terrible, but it had done its job. His head was clearer now. I should go, he said. Go where? You can't go home. Not yet. Not until you know what you're dealing with. Dolores pulled out eggs, started cracking them onto the griddle. You're going to eat something. Then you're going to sit in that church parking lot until Father Mike shows up for morning mass. Then you're going to ask him if you can use the church basement. For what? For gathering people who can help. Todd from the bank. A lawyer, if you can find one on short notice. Maybe Father Mike himself, he's seen this before. She pointed the spatula at him. You don't fight alone, Frank. That's how you lose. Then Frank watched her cook. Efficient, practiced. A woman who'd spent 60 years feeding people who wandered in broken. Why are you doing this? He asked. Dolores slid eggs and toast in front of him. Because someone should have done it for Eddie. Because I watch too many good men get destroyed by people who don't deserve them. Because I'm tired of making breakfast for ghosts. She sat back down across from him, pulled out a pen, started writing on a napkin. Todd's number. He gets to the bank at 7:30 before it opens. Call him. Tell him you know about the accounts. Tell him you're coming in. Frank took the napkin. Todd Breslin. He'd coached the kid in Little League, 30 years ago? Showed up to every game when Todd's dad couldn't be bothered. And this, Dolores said, sliding another napkin across. Rebecca Stern, lawyer. She handles this kind of thing. Family law, elder exploitation. Elder exploitation? The words tasted bitter. That's what this is, Frank. She's systematically stealing from you while sleeping with someone else. There's a legal term for it. Rebecca will know what to do. Frank folded both napkins and put them in his wallet. The receipt from Pines Motor Lodge was still there, crumpled next to his credit cards. He ate the eggs. They were good. Real butter, not margarine. Salt and pepper, nothing fancy. Outside, the sky was starting to lighten. Not sunrise yet, but that deep blue that comes right before the promise of dawn. Thank you, Frank said. Dolores waved it off. Thank me when it's over. Right now, you've got 2.5 hours before that bank opens. I suggest you use them. Frank stood, left $40 on the table, way more than the meal cost. Dolores didn't argue. As he reached the door, she called out, Frank? He turned. You're not alone in this. Remember that. He nodded, couldn't speak past the lump in his throat. Outside, the cold hit him again. But somehow it didn't feel quite as sharp. Frank drove to St. Augustine's as the sky turned from black to deep blue. The church sat on this corner of Main and Oak, brick and stained glass, built in 1947. He'd been coming here for 30 years. Knew every pew, every window, every creak in the floorboards. The side door was unlocked. It always was. Father Mike believed churches shouldn't have locks. Inside, the sanctuary was dark, except for the votive candles burning near the altar. Their light flickered across the empty pews. Frank sat in the back, same spot he always took. Could smell the incense from yesterday's service. Faint but still there. Wood polish and old hymn books. He didn't pray, didn't know what to say. Just sat there while his mind spun through 41 years, trying to figure out where it went wrong. Footsteps echoed from the sacristy. Father Mike emerged carrying a stack of hymnals, stopped when he saw Frank. You're here early, the priest said. He set down the books and walked over. 60 years old, salt and pepper hair, wire-rimmed glasses. Or late, depending on how you look at it. Couldn't sleep, Frank said. Father Mike sat down 2 rows ahead, giving Frank space but staying close enough to talk. That's usually a sign something's weighing heavy. Frank pulled out the manila envelope, set it on the pew beside him, didn't open it. Marjorie's having an affair, he said. The words came out flat, matter-of-fact, like he was reporting the weather. For months, maybe longer, and she's been taking money. I don't know how much yet. Father Mike was quiet. Then, I'm sorry, Frank. I saw her last night, at a club downtown, with him. She saw me watching and she... Frank stopped. Couldn't say it. She didn't care. What are you gonna do? I don't know. Dolores said I should gather people, use the basement here, talk to a lawyer. But He rubbed his face with both hands. I've never been good at this. Fighting, confrontation. I always just kept the peace. Sometimes keeping the peace is just another way of letting yourself get destroyed, Father Mike said quietly. Frank looked up, surprised. The priest leaned forward, elbows on the pew in front of him. I've been doing this job for 23 years, Frank. You know how many times I've sat with someone in your exact situation? Too many. And you know what I've learned? There's a difference between turning the other cheek and letting someone use you as a punching bag. The Bible says, the Bible also says God is a refuge and a fortress, protection. Sometimes the most faithful thing you can do is protect what God gave you stewardship over. Father Mike met his eyes, including yourself. Outside, a car pulled into the lot. Early mass attendee, probably. The church was coming alive. You can use the basement, Father Mike said. Whenever you need it, bring whoever you need to bring. It's private. Neutral ground. He stood. And Frank, I'll be there too, if you want me. Frank nodded, not trusting his voice. Bank opens at 8, the priest said. You've got an hour. I'd spend it praying, but that's just me. He left Frank alone in the sanctuary. Frank tried to pray, couldn't find the words, so he just sat there in the silence, watching the candles burn, until his phone alarm went off at 7:45. First National Bank looked the same as it had for 50 years. Brick facade, brass handles, that institutional smell of paper and air conditioning. Frank had been banking here since he was 23 years old. Todd Breslin was waiting by the door when Frank arrived. He got in the call at 7:30, said he'd have everything ready. Frank, Todd shook his hand. He'd filled out since Little League, but his face was still earnest, still had that look of a kid trying to do right. Come on back. They went to Todd's office. Small room, frosted glass, desk covered in folders. Todd closed the door, pulled the blinds. I should have called you sooner, Todd said. Should have called your cell instead of the house line. But bank protocol. Just show me, Frank said. Todd spread bank statements across the desk. 8 months' worth, yellow highlighter marking withdrawals. It started small, Todd said. 500 here, 300 there. I figured joint purchases, groceries, whatever. But then it escalated. His finger traced down the columns. 500 became 1,000. 1,000 became 2,000. Consistent. Every week or two. Total withdrawn, over 8 months, $47,000. The number hung in the air like smoke. Frank sat down, hard in the chair. 47,000, nearly $50,000. Gone. She has legal access, Todd said quickly. Joint account, so technically she's allowed to withdraw. But the pattern, the amounts, he pulled out another sheet. Yesterday morning, 9 a.m., she tried to close the account entirely, transfer everything to her personal account. Frank's head snapped up. Everything? The savings, the business account from your shop, the emergency fund, all of it. Todd leaned forward. I stalled her, said we needed both signatures for transfers over 10,000. It's not exactly true, but it bought time. Then I froze both accounts, temporarily, flagged them for suspicious activity. You can do that? Not really. I had bent some rules. Todd's jaw set. You showed up to every one of my games when I was 12 years old, Frank. Every single one. My dad couldn't be bothered, but you were there. In the stands, cheering. His voice roughened. I'm just returning the favor. Frank stared at the statements. $47,000. 40 years of work. Rebuilt engines in 100-degree summers. Calluses and busted knuckles in early mornings. Gone on a guy named Derek who drove a BMW with a vanity plate. She'll know by noon, Todd said. Once she tries to access the accounts and can't, she'll call you. She'll be angry. Let her be angry. When Todd looked surprised, then smiled, small, proud. I froze them for 72 hours. That gives you time to get a lawyer, get paperwork filed, protect what's yours. He pulled out a business card. Rebecca Stern, family law. I already called her. She's expecting you at 10. Frank took the card. Rebecca Stern, attorney at law. An address 3 blocks away. There's one more thing, Todd said. He pulled out a final sheet. The withdrawals. I tracked where the money went. Most of it, cash. But some of it, he pointed. Pines Motor Lodge. Venom Lounge, men's clothier downtown. Trask Fitness, that's Derek's gym. She'd been spending Frank's money on Derek, buying him clothes, paying for hotel rooms, funding her own affair. Frank's hands curled into fists on the desk. I'm sorry, Todd said quietly. Don't be. Frank stood, gathered the statements. You gave me ammunition. That's more than sorry. What are you going to do? I'm going to see that lawyer, then I'm going to make some calls. Frank headed for the door, stopped. Thank you, Todd, for the games and for this. Coach, You're a good man. Your dad missed out. Todd's eyes went bright. He nodded. Frank walked out of the bank, statements tucked under his arm. The morning was clear and cold, frost still on the sidewalks. People heading to work, coffee in hand, normal Thursday morning. Frank got in his truck, sat there for a minute. Then he dialed Amy's number. It rang 4 times. Went to voicemail, her voice. You've reached Amy. Leave a message. The beep. Amy, it's Dad. Frank's voice cracked. He cleared his throat. I don't know why I'm calling. Maybe because I finally understand what you tried to tell me 3 years ago. About your mother. About me not standing up. He paused, looked at the bank statements on his passenger seat. I'm sorry I wasn't the father you needed. I'm sorry I chose peace over protecting you. I just wanted you to know I tried. I did try. Another pause. I just didn't try hard enough. He hung up, put his head against the steering wheel. The lawyer's office was 3 blocks away. Frank started the truck and drove. Rebecca Stern's office was above the hardware store on Main Street. Frank climbed the narrow stairs, each step creaking under his boots. The hallway smelled like coffee and old carpet. Her door was open. She sat behind a desk covered in files, gray hair pulled back, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. No wedding ring, pantsuit, all business. Mr. Holloway. She stood, shook his hand, firm grip. Todd called, said it was urgent. It is. She gestured to a chair. Frank sat, pulled out the bank statements, the photos from Dolores, the motel receipt, spread them across her desk like evidence at a crime scene. Rebecca put on her glasses and went through everything methodically. Didn't react. Didn't gasp or shake her head, just read, made notes, organized the papers into stacks. 8 months of documented adultery, she finally said. 47,000 in unauthorized withdrawals from joint accounts. Systematic financial exploitation. And she looked up. Indiana is a no-fault divorce state, Mr. Holloway, but this affects asset division significantly. She won't walk away with half. I don't care about the money, Frank said, then stopped. That's not true. I do care. I care more about not being a fool anymore. Rebecca's expression softened slightly. You're not a fool. You're a man who trusted his wife. There's a difference. She pulled out a legal pad. Here's what we're going to do. I'll file divorce petition today. Asset protection order. If needed, a restraining order. The goal is to lock down what's yours before she can take more. How long does this take? In Indiana, 60 days minimum. But given the circumstances, the financial exploitation, the evidence, she tapped the photos. She'll likely settle. Avoid a trial. Bad optics for her, sir. Frank thought about Marjorie's smirk at the club, her cold voice demanding money. She won't go quietly. They never do. Rebecca leaned back. Expect threats, accusations. She'll try to flip the narrative. Say you were controlling, abusive, that she had to escape. It's called DARVO. Deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. She already said I was controlling to her sister. Of course she did. It's textbook. Rebecca made another note. Don't engage. Document everything, every call, every text, every interaction. Don't meet with her alone. And for God's sake, don't let her back in the house without witnesses. Frank's phone buzzed. Marjorie Mobile. They both looked at it. Don't answer, Rebecca said. Let it go to voicemail. We need to hear what she says. The phone rang, went to voicemail. 30 seconds later, new voicemail. Rebecca nodded. Play it. Frank put it on speaker. Marjorie's voice, shrill and furious. What the hell did you do to the accounts? You controlling bastard. I can't access my money after everything I've sacrificed for you. You think you can trap me? I'll tell everyone what you really are. Abusive, manipulative. Derek is helping me escape you. Don't think I won't get a lawyer. Don't think I won't ruin you. Call me back. Now. The message ended. Rebecca was already writing. Save that. Forward it to me. Notice how she didn't deny the affair or the withdrawals. Just attacked you and threatened retaliation. Frank's hands were shaking again, hearing that venom in her voice. 41 years, and this is who she really was. I have a meeting I can arrange, Rebecca said. Today. 2 p.m. Church basement. Father Mike already agreed. We'll gather everyone who can help. Review evidence. Plan strategy. Get everything filed by close of business. She looked at him over her glasses. Can you be there? Yes. Bring Dolores. Bring Todd, if he can get away. Anyone else who's witnessed anything or can provide support. She started drafting paperwork. I'll have divorce petition ready to file. Process server will deliver it to her tomorrow morning. Frank stood to leave. His phone rang again. Marjorie Mobile. Rebecca nodded. Answer it. Put it on speaker. I'm a witness. Frank answered. I'm here. Fix the accounts. Right now. No. Silence. She hadn't expected that word from him. Not in 41 years. Excuse me? No, Frank said again. Joint accounts mean joint decisions. You withdrew $47,000 without discussing it. That stops now. That's my money. It's our money, from our marriage, which you've been betraying for 8 months. He could hear her breathing, fast, panicked. You don't know anything? Pines Motor Lodge, Venom Lounge. Derek's BMW in our driveway while I was at the hardware store. His voice stayed level, calm. I know everything. Her voice went cold, calculated. Then you know I'm done. Derek and I, then be done. But you leave with what you brought. Nothing. He hung up, his first time ever ending a call with her. His hands were trembling, but his heart felt steady. Rebecca was smiling, grim but satisfied. Good. That's on record now. She admitted to Derek, didn't deny the affair. She handed him a card. 2 p.m. Church basement. Don't be late. Frank drove back to St. Augustine's in a daze. The morning sun was bright and cold. People going about their normal Thursday, getting groceries, walking dogs, living lives that made sense. His didn't make sense anymore. He parked in the church lot, went down to the basement through the side entrance. Folding chairs, water-stained ceiling tiles, smell of old coffee and mildew. Father Mike was setting up a table. Rebecca called. The priest said you'd need the space at 2. Thank you. Frank, before people get here, Father Mike set down a chair. However this goes, whatever you decide, you're doing the right thing. Standing up for yourself isn't unchristian, it's human. Frank nodded, sat in one of the folding chairs. The basement was quiet, peaceful. He pulled out his phone, looked at Amy's contact. The photo was from her wedding, 3 years ago, the day they'd argued. The day she told him Marjorie had been poisoning their relationship for years, and he'd let it happen. She'd been right. Frank hit record on voicemail, listened to his own message again. His voice sounded broken, old, apologetic. He put the phone away. Upstairs, the church bell rang. Noon. 2 states away, Amy Holloway Chen sat in a meeting that didn't matter, listening to a presentation she didn't care about. Her phone was silenced, but she saw it light up on the table. Dad, mobile. Her stomach clenched. Her father never called. They hadn't spoken in 3 years. Not since the wedding. Not since she'd finally told him the truth about Marjorie's manipulations and he'd defended his wife instead. Of his daughter. The meeting droned on. Market analysis, quarterly projections, words that meant nothing. Amy excused herself, walked to the hallway, listened to the voicemail. Her father's voice, shaking. Amy, it's Dad. I don't know why I'm calling. Maybe because I finally understand what you tried to tell me 3 years ago. About your mother. About me not standing up. A pause. Background noise. Cars passing. I'm sorry I wasn't the father you needed. I'm sorry I chose peace over protecting you. I just wanted you to know. I tried. I did try. I just didn't try hard enough. The message ended. Amy played it again. Heard the break in his voice. The exhaustion. The defeat. Something was very wrong. She called back. It rang 4 times. Went to voicemail. Dad, it's Amy. Call me back, please. Whatever's happening, just call me back. She hung up, stood in the hallway, staring at her phone. Then she walked back into the meeting, grabbed her laptop. I have to go. Family emergency. Her boss started to protest. Amy was already out the door. She called her husband from the parking lot. James, I need to drive to Indiana now. Something's wrong with Dad. What happened? I don't know. But he left me a voicemail, and he sounded... She couldn't find the word. Broken? Desperate? He needs me. It's 8 hours. Roads are bad. Storm coming through. I don't care. I should have gone 3 years ago. She started the car. I'll text you when I'm there. Be careful. I will. Amy pulled up GPS. 8 hours and 14 minutes to her father's house. She'd make it in 7 if she pushed. The first snowflakes started hitting her windshield as she merged onto the highway. Back at St. Augustine's, Frank sat in the basement as people started arriving. Dolores came first. Brought coffee in a thermos. Set it on the table without a word. Todd showed up at 1:50, still in his suit from the bank, nervous but determined. Father Mike came down from the sanctuary, took a seat in the back. At 2 p.m. exactly, Rebecca Stern arrived with a briefcase full of documents. She spread everything's on the table. Photos, bank statements, timeline of the affair, legal options. Here's the situation, she began. Mr. Holloway's wife has been systematically exploiting him financially while conducting an 8-month affair. We have comprehensive evidence. The accounts are frozen for 68 more hours. We need to file divorce petition, asset protection order, and potentially a restraining order by close of business today. Todd pulled up account records on his laptop, showed the withdrawal patterns. Dolores added her surveillance notes, dates, times, license plates. Father Mike listened quietly, offered the church basement for any future meetings. They were building a case, a strategy. Frank sat at the head of the table, watching these people who barely knew each other come together to protect him. Dolores, who'd lost her husband to the same betrayal. Todd, who remembered Little League games 30 years ago. Father Mike, who believed protecting yourself was holy work. Rebecca, who'd seen this pattern too many times. Mr. Holloway? Rebecca looked at him. Are you ready to do this? Frank thought about Marjorie's smirk, Derek's laugh. $47,000 spent on another man, 41 years reduced to nothing. Yes. His phone rang. Marjorie mobile. Everyone looked at him. Speaker, Rebecca said. We're all witnesses now, Frank answered. Put it on speaker. Frank, are you there? He didn't respond. Fine, I'm coming to get my things. All of them. Try to stop me and I'll call the police. I'll tell them you're threatening me, that you've always been threatening me. The line went dead. Todd checked his watch. It's 2:15. She's probably already on her way. Rebecca started packing documents. Then we meet her there. All of us. She wants witnesses? We'll give her witnesses. Dolores stood. Let's go. They piled into cars. Rebecca and the process server in one, Dolores and Father Mike in another, Todd following in his sedan, Frank in his truck leading the convoy. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Mr. Holloway, it's Amy. Dad, what's going on? I got your message. I'm driving there now. I'll be there by 9 tonight. Don't do anything until I get there, please. The voicemail ended. Frank stared at the phone. Amy was coming. His daughter, who hadn't spoken to him in 3 years, was driving through a snowstorm to help him. He pulled into his driveway. Marjorie's car wasn't there yet, but Derek's BMW was, parked right in front of the house. Bold as brass, the cavalry pulled in behind him, and Frank got out of his truck, ready for war. They didn't have to wait long. Marjorie's car pulled up 10 minutes later, tires crunching on the icy driveway. She got out, saw the crowd assembled on Frank's front lawn, and stopped dead. What is this? Her voice was sharp, defensive. Derek emerged from the house carrying Frank's television, the small one from the bedroom. He saw the gathering and set it down on the porch. Frank felt every muscle in his body go rigid. That's my TV, he said quietly. It's ours, Marjorie snapped. She gestured at the SUV, trunk already open. I'm taking what's mine, what I'm owed after 41 years of putting up with Mrs. Holloway. Rebecca stepped forward, briefcase in hand, professional, calm. I'm Rebecca Stern, Mr. Holloway's attorney. Marjorie's face went white, then red. His attorney? That's correct. Rebecca pulled out documents. I'm here to serve you with divorce petition, asset protection order, and notice of account restrictions. The process server moved forward. Marjorie Holloway? Yes. It came out uncertain. He handed her the papers. Official, legal. You've been served. Marjorie stared at the documents like they were written in a foreign language. Her hands shook as she unfolded them. Read the first page, the second, then she tore them in half. This is bullshit. She threw the pieces at Frank's feet. 41 years, and this is what I get? You froze me out of my own money. You're trying to control me, to trap me. Joint accounts require joint access, Rebecca said calmly. The withdrawals you made, $47,000 over 8 months, constitute financial exploitation. We have documentation. Exploitation? Marjorie's voice went shrill. I earned that money. 41 years of cooking and cleaning and putting up with his cold, distant... Mom? Everyone turned. A car had pulled up at the end of the driveway, out-of-state plates covered in road salt and snow. The door opened and a woman got out. 39, exhausted, still wearing her work clothes. Snow melting in her dark hair. Amy. She'd made it in 7 hours. Marjorie's mouth opened, closed. Amy, what are you doing here? Amy walked up the driveway, taking in the scene. The torn divorce papers, the loaded SUV, Derek on the porch with stolen property, her father, standing with a lawyer and a priest, and a woman Amy recognized from the diner downtown. I got Dad's voicemail, Amy said. Her voice was controlled, tight. Drove through a blizzard. Thought something terrible happened. She looked at her mother. Guess I was right. Honey, your father has lost his mind. He froze my accounts, sicked a lawyer on me, and now he's trying to... Is it true? Amy cut her off. Is what true? Are you cheating on him? The silence was brutal. Marjorie's face cycled through emotions. Shock, guilt, then anger. You don't understand. The situation is complicated. Your father has always been emotionally unavailable. Cold. That's not what I asked. Amy's voice could have cut glass. Simple question, Mom. Yes or no? Are you having an affair? Derek shifted uncomfortably on the porch, started backing toward the door. I think you should leave, Amy said to him, not loud, but something in her voice made it a command. This isn't your business, Derek said, tried for cocky, fell short. Amy turned to look at him fully for the first time. Her eyes went to the leather jacket he was wearing. She recognized it, her father's jacket. The one he'd worn to every single one of her softball games when she was a kid. Take off my father's jacket. What? You heard me. Take it off, now. Derek looked at Marjorie. Got no help there. She was staring at Amy like she was seeing a stranger. "Take it off," Amy said again. "Before I take it off you." It's something in her voice, or maybe the way she'd moved closer, hands at her sides. Weight balanced like she was ready, made Derek pull off the jacket. He handed it to Frank. "This is crazy," Derek muttered. Got in his BMW, started the engine. "Derek?" Marjorie's voice cracked. "Where are you?" The BMW reversed out of the driveway, tires squealing, gone. Marjorie stood alone, surrounded by witnesses. Her lover fled. "That's what I thought," Amy said quietly. She turned to her father. "Dad?" Frank couldn't speak, just looked at his daughter. 3 years, 3 years of silence. And she'd driven through a storm because he finally asked for help without asking. "I should have come sooner," Amy said. Her voice broke. "I should have. You're here now." Frank's throat was tight. "That's what matters." Marjorie looked between them, father and daughter, united. For the first time in 20 years, united against her. You're both. She couldn't finish. Grabbed a box from the SUV, started toward the house. Rebecca stepped in front of her. "Mrs. Holloway, the restraining order specifies you have 48 hours to vacate the property. You may take personal clothing and items. Everything else stays until asset division is determined by the court. You can't keep me out of my own house. It's Mr. Holloway's house. Deed is in his name solely. Purchased before the marriage." Rebecca's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. "You're welcome to contest that in court, but right now, you need to leave." Marjorie's face twisted. "I'll fight this. I'll take you for everything. I'll tell everyone you were abusive, controlling, that I had to escape." "We have 8 months of documented evidence," Rebecca said. "Photos, bank statements, testimony from multiple witnesses. You're welcome to tell whatever story you want, Mrs. Holloway. But the evidence tells a different one." Todd spoke up from the side. "The account withdrawals are all documented, including the charges to Pines Motor Lodge, Venom Lounge, Trask Fitness. We can show exactly where every dollar went." Dolores held up her order pad. "I've got dates and times. 3 months worth. Your car, his car, following each other." Marjorie looked around at all of them. Witnesses, documentation, a wall of people who'd decided to protect Frank instead of look away. "Fine." Her voice went cold, dead. "You want a settlement? Let's settle. Because I'm not spending another second in this godforsaken town being humiliated." Rebecca pulled out more papers. "These are settlement terms. Sign them now. This ends quietly. Refuse, and we go to court. Your choice." "I need to read." "You can read them. Take your time." Rebecca checked her watch. "But I should mention, several neighbors have been watching from their windows. Mrs. Chen at 4:26, Mr. Okafor at 4:30. This has already become public, Mrs. Holloway. The question is whether you want it to become more public. A trial. Testimony. Evidence presented in open court." Marjorie took the papers. Her hands shook as she read. Frank watched her face change as she saw the terms. House, Frank's. Remaining accounts, Frank's. She kept her car, personal jewelry, and half of the liquid savings predating her withdrawals. Roughly $23,000. Less than she'd stolen, less than she thought she deserved. "You're robbing me," she said. "No," Frank said. Quiet, firm. "You robbed me. This is me taking back what's mine." Marjorie looked at him, really looked at him. Maybe saw for the first time that the man she'd married, the one who always backed down, always kept the peace, was gone. Replaced by someone who'd finally learned to stand up. She signed. 3 places, Rebecca's pen, process server witnessed. 48 hours, Rebecca said. After that, the locks change. Marjorie dropped the pen, walked to her car, no boxes, no television, no stolen property. She looked at Amy. "I suppose you're staying with him?" "Yeah," Amy said. "I am. Of course you are. You always took his side." "No, Mom. I took nobody's side because I was shut out. You made sure of that." Amy's voice was steady, sad. "Don't call me. I'll call you when I'm ready." "If I'm ready." Marjorie got in her car, sat there for a moment, hands on the wheel. Then she drove away. The street was quiet. Neighbors slowly went back inside. The show was over. Frank stood in his driveway, holding his father's leather jacket, surrounded by people who'd chosen to help him. His daughter beside him, for the first time in 3 years. "Well," Father Mike said quietly, "that went better than expected." Dolores snorted. "Better?" Derek ran like a scared rabbit, and she left without a fight. "I'd say that went perfect." Amy looked at Frank. "Dad, She started crying, just broke down. 3 years of anger and hurt and regret. Frank pulled her into a hug, held his daughter while she sobbed into his shoulder. "I'm sorry," she kept saying. "I'm so sorry." Don't be, Frank said, his own voice rough. You came. That's all that matters. Rebecca packed up her briefcase. I'll file these tomorrow. Divorce should be final in 60 days. She won't contest. She shook Frank's hand. You did good today. Todd clapped Frank on the shoulder. Call me if you need anything, Coach. They dispersed, cars pulling away, until it was just Frank and Amy standing in the driveway as the winter sun started to set. Can I stay a few days? Amy asked. I don't know what I need, but I need to be here. Your room's the same, Frank said. Never changed it. Amy looked surprised. Even after I stopped calling? You're my daughter. That doesn't stop. They went inside together. The workshop was warmer now. Amy had fixed the space heater properly, replaced the duct tape with actual electrical work. Frank stood at his workbench, running his hand over the rocking chair's arm. Nearly finished. Just needed the final coat of oil. Amy sat across from him, sanding one of the runners with fine grit paper. She'd been staying in her old room for 3 weeks now, working remotely, making excuses to her boss about family obligations. But they both knew she wasn't leaving anytime soon. Who's this for? She asked. Not for the first time. Frank smiled. Someone who'll know they come from stubborn stock. Your grandkids? Amy looked up, hopeful. Maybe. Or their kids. Good work, lass. He picked up the oil can, started applying the finish with a soft cloth. I'm making another one, too. For their other grandfather, your husband's dad. Amy stopped sanding. You're thinking about family. That's what this is now, isn't it? Building family. And Frank worked the oil into the wood grain. That's what it always should have been. Headlights swept across the workshop window. Amy checked her watch. 7:15, Thursday. Dolores, they said together. Frank set down his cloth. They walked to the house. Dolores stood on the porch, holding an apple pie, still steaming, the smell of cinnamon and butter. Thursday pie, she announced. Walked in like she owned the place, set it on the kitchen table. You don't have to keep doing this, Frank said. I know I don't have to. I want to. Dolores pulled out plates. Besides, I make 6 pies every Thursday anyway. What's one more for people who appreciate it? Amy set the table. It was easy now. Domestic. Like they'd been doing this for years instead of weeks. Another car pulled up. Todd's sedan. That boy has timing, Dolores muttered. Todd came in without knocking. He'd gotten comfortable here too. Brought a folder of papers. Just the updates you wanted, he said to Frank. Accounts are all settled. House is fully in your name. Deed transferred. Savings account secured. New investment options if you're interested. He stayed for pie. They all did. Sat around Frank's kitchen table. The one Marjorie had wanted to replace said it was too old, too scratched, and ate pie and talked about nothing important. The diner's new employee who couldn't crack eggs to save her life. Todd's daughter making honor roll. Amy's kids asking when they could visit Grandpa. Normal things, regular things. Frank mostly listened. Watched these people in his kitchen. His daughter laughing at something Dolores said. Todd wiping pie crumbs from his tie. This was what peace felt like. Oh, Todd said, pulling out another paper. Divorce finalized yesterday. Judge signed off. Marjorie didn't contest any of it. Where is she? Amy asked. Columbus. Heard she's working retail. Derek's not with her. Got back with his ex-wife. Todd shrugged. Karma's efficient. Amy snorted. Good. They finished the pie. Todd left first. Had to get home to his family. Dolores lingered. Helped clean up. You doing okay? She asked Frank quietly while Amy was in the other room. I'm doing better than okay, Frank said, and meant it. Good. Dolores patted his arm. You earned it. After she left, Frank and Amy went back to the workshop. Amy picked up her sandpaper. Frank picked up his oilcloth. Father Mike stopped by earlier, Amy said. Asked if you'd do a commission for the church, new lectern. I told him yes. Dad. Amy set down the sandpaper. I have to tell you something. Frank looked up. I talked to James. About the kids, about bringing them here. She took a breath. Next weekend, if that's okay. They want to meet their grandpa. Frank's hands stilled on the chair. You told them about me? I told them the truth, that their grandpa made a mistake, that he chose the wrong person to defend. But when it mattered, when it really mattered, he stood up for himself. For us, her voice thickened. I told them he's brave and stubborn and makes the most beautiful furniture they'll ever see. Frank couldn't speak past the lump in his throat. They're 6 and 8, Amy continued. They want to know if you'll teach them woodworking, if they can help make something. Yes. It came out rough. Yes, God, yes. Amy smiled, wiped her eyes. Okay then, Saturday morning. Fair warning, they're loud, And they ask a million questions and they'll probably break something. I don't care. Frank looked at the rocking chair. Nearly complete. A legacy piece. This is for them, this chair. I want them to know that even when things break, you can build something new. It's beautiful, Dad. They worked in silence for a while, just the sound of sandpaper on wood, the oil soaking into grain, the space heater humming properly for once. I'm sorry, Frank said suddenly. Amy looked up. For what? For not protecting you when you were young. From Marjorie. I should have... Dad. Amy came around the workbench, took his hands. You can't fix the past, but you can show up for the future. That's what you're doing now. Frank squeezed her hands, Carpenter's hands, rough and scarred, holding his daughter's, trying to repair what he'd broken through years of silence. I love you, kiddo. And I love you too. They went back to work, building something that would last, something that would hold the weight of children and grandchildren and all the generations that came after. Outside, winter wind rattled the barn, but inside the workshop was warm, safe, full of the smell of wood oil and sawdust and new beginnings. Frank tested the rocking chair, sat down, rocked once. The creak was perfect. Saturday morning came cold and bright. Frank was up at 5, couldn't sleep from nerves. He made coffee, strong, the good stuff, not the cheap kind he'd been buying for years because Marjorie said coffee was coffee. Amy found him in the workshop at 6, already organizing tools. Dad, they're not coming until 9. Relax. I want it ready. He moved a saw, moved it back. What if they don't like me? They'll love you. Amy handed him coffee. But maybe put away the sharp tools before 2 elementary schoolers get here? Frank nodded, started moving chisels to higher shelves. At 8:30, a minivan pulled into the driveway. James got out first. Tall guy, kind face, shook Frank's hand firmly. Mr. Holloway, good to finally meet you. Frank, please. Then the back doors opened. 2 kids tumbled out. Boy and girl, 6 and 8, dark hair like Amy's. But the boy had Frank's eyes. They stopped in the driveway, suddenly shy. Guys, Amy said, this is Grandpa Frank. The girl, Sarah, 8 years old, stepped forward. Mom says you make furniture. I do. But can you teach us? Frank's throat went tight. I'd like that very much. The ice broke. They followed him to the workshop, chattering nonstop, asking about every tool, every piece of wood, every project in progress. Frank showed them the rocking chair, explained how you choose wood, how grain matters, how you sand with the pattern, not against it. Can we make something? Sarah asked. What do you want to make? The boy, Michael, 6, thought hard. A birdhouse for Mom's garden. Frank pulled out pine boards, set up the workbench at kid height, gave them safety glasses that were too big and kept sliding down their noses. They measured, cut, with Frank guiding their hands on the saw. Sanded. Michael got a splinter and was very brave about it. Sarah hammered her thumb and cried but insisted on finishing. James and Amy watched from the doorway, not interfering, just letting it happen. By noon, they had a lopsided birdhouse, crooked roof, one wall slightly shorter than the others. Most beautiful thing Frank had ever seen. It's perfect, he said. It's crooked, Sarah pointed out. It's perfect because you made it. And birds don't care about crooked. They painted it, blue and yellow, got more paint on themselves than the wood. Frank took pictures on his phone, sent them to Amy. At lunch, they ate sandwiches at the kitchen table. The kids told him about school, about their friends, about their dog named Biscuit, who ate homework and farted a lot. Frank laughed. Really laughed. Hadn't done that in months. Can we come back next weekend? Michael asked. Every weekend if you want, Frank said, then looked at Amy. If that's okay with your mom. Amy was crying, happy tears. That's very okay. But after they left, kids waving from the back window, Birdhouse carefully buckled into the seat between them. Frank stood in the driveway until the van disappeared. Amy came up beside him. You okay? I'm better than okay. He looked at his workshop. The mess they'd made. Sawdust everywhere, paint spills, tools scattered, and this is what it's supposed to be, isn't it? Family, noise, life. Yeah, Dad. This is what it's supposed to be. A month after the divorce finalized, Frank finished the church lectern. Solid oak, hand-carved with a small brass plate, in memory of Eddie Chen and all those who protect others. He delivered it on a Sunday morning. Father Mike assembled the congregation. Frank carried it down the aisle. Amy on one side, Dolores on the other. They installed it at the altar. Father Mike blessed it, said a few words about redemption and second chances and the holiness of standing up for yourself. Dolores cried. First time Frank had seen her cry. After the service, people came up to shake his hand. Some he'd known for years, some were strangers. All of them had heard the story. Small town, gossip travels fast. Proud of you, Frank, Mr. Okafor said. The neighbor from number 430? Takes guts to do what you did. Mrs. Chen from number 426 brought him cookies. For you and Amy. Welcome home, both of you. Frank realized something. He wasn't ashamed anymore. Wasn't hiding. The humiliation of Marjorie's betrayal had transformed into something else. Proof that he'd survived. That he'd fought back. That he'd won. Not won the marriage. Lost that. But won himself back. That afternoon, Amy sat him down at the kitchen table. Serious face. James got a job offer, she said. Frank's heart sank. You're leaving? No. Well, yes, but not far. She smiled. 30 minutes away. We're moving closer. James starts at the hospital here in 2 months. We're looking at houses. You're staying? We're staying. The kids need their grandpa. And I need... She took his hand. I need my dad. The real one. The one who showed up. Frank couldn't speak. Just held her hand. Also, Amy said, I talked to Mom. Frank went still. Don't worry. I'm not suggesting reconciliation or anything. But she called. Asked if we could have coffee. She apologized. For what? For poisoning my relationship with you. For lying. For... Amy shrugged. A lot. I don't know if I forgive her yet. Maybe someday. But at least she acknowledged it. And Frank thought about that. Marjorie acknowledging her role. Apologizing. It didn't fix anything. Didn't change the past. But it was something. That's between you and her, he finally said. Whatever you need to do, I support it. Thanks, Dad. 3 months later, Amy and James closed on a house. 20 minutes from Frank's place. The kids came over every Saturday for woodworking lessons. Sarah made a jewelry box for her teacher. Michael made a step stool, crooked but functional. Frank taught them about wood grain, about patience, about how sometimes you have to sand something down to nothing before you can build it back up right. They understood he wasn't just talking about furniture. Dolores kept bringing Thursday pies. Todd stopped by monthly with account updates and stayed for dinner. Father Mike commissioned a new altar cross just so Frank would keep coming around. The workshop became the center of Frank's life. Not the sad refuge of a man hiding from his wife, but the creative heart of a man building legacy. He made a crib for Amy's friend who was pregnant, a table for the church's community meals, a bookshelf for the library, small things, meaningful things. On a Sunday, in late spring, Frank sat on his porch with coffee, real coffee, the expensive kind. The sun was warm, his garden was coming up, Amy had helped him plant it, tomatoes and peppers and herbs. Michael's crooked birdhouse hung from the oak tree. A family of sparrows had moved in. Turned out, birds really didn't care about crooked. Amy pulled up with the kids. They tumbled out, ran to the workshop. Grandpa, can we start the toy box today? Frank stood, felt his knees protest. 68 years old, arthritis in his hands, but alive, still here, still standing. Let's do it, he said. In the workshop, surrounded by 3 generations of his family, Frank taught his grandchildren how to measure twice and cut once, how to respect the wood, how to build something that lasts. Sarah asked, Grandpa, why didn't Grandma Marjorie want to learn woodworking? Frank paused. The kids knew about the divorce. In kid-appropriate terms, Mom and Dad grew apart. Sometimes that happens. No one's fault. But Sarah was 8, smart. She knew there was more to the story. Sometimes, Frank said carefully, people want different things. Your grandma wanted excitement. I wanted peace. Turns out we both needed something in the middle. Do you miss her? Michael asked. Frank thought about it. Honestly. I miss who I thought she was, but I don't miss who she really was. Does that make sense? Michael shrugged. 6-year-olds didn't do nuance. What I know, Frank said, is that I have you guys now, and your mom, and this workshop. And that's more than enough. Sarah hugged him, got sawdust on her shirt, didn't care. They worked until lunch, built the frame for the toy box. Michael hammered in nails, straight this time, improving. Sarah measured and marked with pencil. Amy watched from the doorway, James beside her, arm around her waist. Your dad's good with them, James said. He's getting a second chance, Amy replied. We all are. That night, after everyone left, Frank sat in the rocking chair he'd made, the one meant for grandchildren. He rocked slowly, listening to the perfect creak. The workshop was quiet, but it was a good quiet. Not the silence of avoidance and loneliness, the silence of satisfaction and work. Well done. His phone buzzed. Text from Amy, thanks for today. The kids are already asking when we can come back. Love you, Dad. Frank typed back, love you too, kiddo. See you Saturday. He set down his phone, looked around his workshop, tools on the walls, projects in progress, Michael's crooked birdhouse visible through the window, swaying in the evening breeze. This was enough. This was more than enough. This was everything. Frank stood in his workshop at dusk, running his hand over a piece of fresh-cut maple. The grain was beautiful, tight even, strong, good wood for a dining table. Amy had requested it for their new house. Outside, spring had turned to summer. The garden was full. The birdhouse was occupied. Life had filled in all the empty spaces. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Frank used to believe that, spent 68 years believing it. But standing here now, he understood the truth. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, but you can damn sure teach him he's worth protecting. And that's trick enough. 41 years. Gone. Some people would call that failure. Maybe it was. But Frank was still here. Still standing. Still building things that would outlast him. Marjorie wanted him to disappear, to be the old man in the corner who just accepted whatever she decided. For a long time, he was that man, the one who kept the peace at any cost, who swallowed his pride and his voice and his dignity, because silence was easier than standing up. But something breaks when you're standing in 17-degree cold, watching your life mocked through a frosted window. Something breaks, and something else wakes up. The something that woke up wasn't anger, wasn't revenge. It was simpler than that. Self-respect. Frank learned that dignity isn't about never being humiliated. It's about refusing to stay down. It's about saying no for the first time in 41 years and meaning it. It's about gathering people who care and letting them help instead of drowning alone. He was 68 years old, arthritis in his hands, a mortgage paid off through 40 years of busted knuckles, a daughter who gave him a second chance he didn't deserve, but took anyway. That was enough. More than enough. The workshop light glowed warm against the summer dusk. Frank's wedding ring sat in a small ceramic dish on the shelf, not thrown away, not worn, just there, acknowledging the past without living in it. He picked up his pencil, started marking measurements on the maple, a dining table for his daughter's house, where his grandchildren would eat breakfast and do homework and grow up knowing their grandpa built something just for them. Outside, through the window, he could see Amy's car pulling into the driveway. Thursday dinner, new tradition. Frank set down his pencil and went to meet his family. Some things end so other things can begin, and that wasn't failure, that was life.